All right, it's me, Bat Murdoch, coming at you with another episode of the One Brain Cell podcast. How does he see with this shit on? This is crazy.
So dead. Where
He's
did
blind.
you get that? I know he's blind.
I dressed up as Matt Murdock for Halloween because people say I look like the actor.
Oh, you can pass for it.
Yeah.
Wait, but how are you Matt
see it.
Murdock and wearing a Batman t-shirt?
I'm Bat Murdoch.
You can be a fan.
Yeah, exactly.
There's cross references.
Yeah, it's like my secret identity so people don't know I'm Batman.
DC crossing over to a Marvel?
That would
Yeah.
never happen. Anyways, we're here with our friend Mark, who is an expert in all things nerd, and especially our topic today, which is comic book adaptations.
Okay, just to clarify, we're talking about
right.
adaptations that I know a lot about, not like the source material. Those I'm pretty sure you can find like on YouTube, like all those experts. But
Yeah, not
a lot of adaptations though, that's my alley.
Yeah, no one's coming here looking for like comic book like aficionados, I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we get started into like Mark so kindly gave us a bunch of topics that he would like to talk about, but I want to know what you guys, what like got you guys into like superheroes and comic book adaptations and stuff. Like, what was the first thing that really hooked you?
I guess again that's why even for me right now I'm wearing the Superman shirt, because that was like the very first like real adaptation. Watching the Superman animated series, when it used to be on Saturday mornings. And for me, it's because the reason I like Superman a lot is because when I was younger in school, I grew up in a mostly Irish and Italian like based school. So like I was the only Asian kid until like 5th or 6th grade. So I felt kind of out of place. But with Superman, he also felt kind of out of place coming from a different world, right, from Krypton. So watching that as a kid, it's like I kind of find a little bit of relatable to his character, and that's why I loved watching that animated series, and then with Batman as well. But that's where it started for me.
Wow, that's surprisingly wholesome. Normally, I feel like normally it's kids who are like, yeah, I like Batman because he punched the bad guy. So
Yeah,
that's actually,
what I always hear a lot too of that.
yeah,
I
it's
like
really
Batman
nice.
because he punches the bad guy.
Yeah, you like
There you go.
Anna saw Batman punch the bad guy, and she's like, I'm in.
No, well, honestly, it's because like coming home like from school, I usually go to school and then after school and then I come home, and then by the time I come home, like on Cartoon Network is always Batman that was on. So like I grew up with Batman, and like just like a lot of Cartoon Network shows, a lot of it was like very much DC, like Justice League, Teen Titan, Batman, Batman Beyond. Not very much into like Superman, like especially with the live action shows and stuff like that. And then Marvel was because I remember very vividly that they actually filmed Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire on my street that I lived on, and so I got to like see it live, like shooting and everything, and I was like, this is so cool.
Damn.
And then I watched the movie and I was very interested in Spider-Man. But I think like something about Spider-Man, like after the first movie, Spider-Man just kind of like did not hit as much for me as a kid, so I like
Oh, no.
Marvel just kind of fell off for me. It was always about DC, and then Marvel came back into the life, when they started doing the Marvel Universe kind of shit.
Yeah, little known movie called The Avengers came out. It changed the game.
It did.
Yeah, so I think this is interesting because I think like there's a little bit of like our slight age difference showing, because I had a similar thing where I would come home and watch like those Cartoon Network shows, but for me when they were on, it was X-Men and Justice League instead of Batman and Superman. So I think it was like past that. For me, like Justice League definitely solidified it, but the original X-Men cartoon and like the movies also definitely inspired my interest in superheroes and stuff, especially because the subject matter is like so much against prejudice and feeling accepted and stuff like that. So it's very deep compared to like just Batman punch the bad guy. And for some reason my child brain was able to connect with that, even though it was like a little like this size. So that's where I started out.
First of all, stop aging us, all right? Like we're not
They
that
don't
far
know.
in age, all three of us.
But X-Men was mid 90s though, because I that was also one of my beginnings too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's why now with the new revised series that they came back on Disney
Yes.
Plus, X-Men '97, because it's supposed to take place after the last season.
Yeah.
So it picks up right up from there.
Yeah, I say the age difference thing because when I was watching like Justice League specifically, like I had heard about like Batman and Superman, like the shows from the Justice League, but it was never like they were never showing it. So it was like a weird like they were just done with that and it was all Justice League, which I was okay with. I still haven't seen Batman and Superman, but one day I hope to. I say
Like,
as if
the
I don't have the
movie?
power. No, not the movie, the animated
Animated?
series.
Okay.
I think most of the DC stuff now are on Max. So on Max you can find anything DC related there now
And everything Marvel is on Disney.
on Disney. So it's kind of split between those two primarily now.
Yeah, hit us up for those sponsorships. Yeah, but Mark, so you wanted to open up this discussion discussing why comic book adaptations have like such a grand appeal. Like we've seen it with like, you know, especially the
Yeah.
MCU nowadays and with like the Batman films early on. Just so many people are interested in this when it on the surface seems like completely silly. I'm sure to like a lot of people early in the 2000s and 90s it was. So like
Exactly.
what brings people in to watch this and become part of the community, I suppose.
Yeah, because like when we look at it now, it becomes like such a norm that I feel like almost every person, like by the time they're 18 years old, have seen some kind of adaptation of a comic book movie or source or whatever related, right?
Mhm.
But like I always find it interesting, like what is the appeal for a lot of people? And usually it's the characters or the origin stories that they have behind them. When I really looked into like the history of all of this, like if you look back, like the comics really elevated themselves during the golden age during like the 1920s and 1930s when Superman first came in, right?
Mhm.
But if you look at it much even further before that, if you think about it, what about like the Roman and Greek mythology? They had their own gods. These were people who had their own powers and abilities that the Romans and Greeks looked up to.
Mhm.
And they always found a way to relate to them because those stories, if you probably remember from like school, like they would always talk about family, revenge, or they talk about finding ways that they can connect with the people there.
Mhm.
So I always found it like an interesting point of like, even until now, comic books and the adaptations have been such a big mainstream. And the appeal of it, again, is just the way that people are connecting to different characters
Yeah.
and the stories that are being told.
So, Mark, as a side question, as a guy, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? Because I think about it a lot, and apparently a lot of guys do too. I just like it.
I think it's like just their will to just want to take over and just be like the strongest empire, right?
Yeah.
And just having,
They got the dog in them.
yeah. But probably not as much as you in that case. Like, but
probably
it's
for the
definitely
best.
I've definitely heard about that though, about like how it is like their mentality, the Roman Empire mentality, or like 300, right? You would think
Yeah.
it's one of the movies that come into mind.
See, I thought guys were more into World War II. I thought it was like different and quirky, but I guess not.
No, I feel like World War II is like more sad and depressing.
Yeah, it's not for me. Not my
Yeah.
war.
No, Zach thinks about both of them, and he's like,
That's
"Don't you
a
think
real
about the
man.
aqueduct system? Don't you
The
think about
Aqueducts
the
are
wall?"
cool.
It's like, what? Who thinks about this stuff all the time?
Not
Like,
all the
just-
time. Just when you need a little pick me up.
Yeah, when you like need to appreciate the advancement and
Yeah.
whatever technology.
What
we came
humans
up
can become or something.
I also just wanted to point out, going back to mythology,
Yes.
there's even one superhero that's even from mythology. There's Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hercules is also. No, Hercules is one
Hercules is a hero. Yeah.
of the. He's gonna be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe soon. Also, if you remember from what was that movie? He was shown in the post-credit scene. See, there's so many. There's like so many adaptations now that even I forget.
Black Adam.
No. The one it's one of the recent Marvel movies, but it's like a bunch of them. They all had. Oh, it's the one where they had the big celestial stuck in the earth that no one talks about.
Eternals.
Eternals. Yes, thank you.
you. God,
Post-credit
nobody
scene.
talks about that movie.
Post-credit scene had Hercules in there.
No.
Nice.
What?
Yeah, there's a reference in there.
I thought it had the other person who Harry Styles.
No, Harry Styles. That's the
Harry
brother of
Styles.
Thanos. That was the brother of Thanos.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Is
That's
that
why I'm
Okay.
is that stuff still coming or did they drop that?
No, that's still gonna
That's
be coming.
Oh, okay.
But again, going back to my point, Hercules and Thor are like probably the prime examples that even brought into like comic book adaptations. So it's been a long time that people have been thinking about abilities and trying to find a way to connect even with just through the stories that they had in their origins.
But I'm thinking, like, I know what you're mentioning is like there's been such a long running thing in terms of like our historical connection to like things that are like heroes and stuff. But I was thinking, like, why now versus like compared to like, you know, when we were kids for it to be such a big deal to adults then. And I was just thinking it's just because we grew up on these comic books and like being fascinated with it. And then now that we're growing up, and we, you know, we have the money to fund these kind of things and then also show our like future generation these kind of things is also kind of a reason why like comic book adaptations and stuff like that is not just so much a nerd thing to be doing or being interested in now. It's like it's a general population interest now.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, if you look even at the producers and directors, all of these people like James Gunn, Kevin Feige, they grew up on these comics. So they really want to try to appreciate as much as they can bring from the source material and bring it to the big screen.
Yeah.
And like you said, we all grew up on that now. So now that we're the older and we have our kids who are watching this too, it's like a continuous cycle that people are going to continue watching these adaptations.
Yeah, it's definitely more mainstream. It's definitely more accessible. Like you've seen, like all these movies or it's just mega events. Like people go to it even if they don't necessarily interested in because it's a cool thing to do now. So yeah, it was a gradual effect, which I think partially started with like all the shit, like not shitty, but like okay movies in like the 2000s. Like, well, Spider-Man was good. X-Men was like, it wasn't good. I liked it as a kid, but it wasn't good. Blade.
I think they were still better than some of the iterations now.
Yeah.
But I think the early 2000s, it still was a big moment because like they were bringing this into the spotlight. People knew about X-Men from the 90s, Spider-Man also from, you know, other various mediums, but with X-Men at least, it also has a diverse cast. That was the main thing that a lot of people liked because people from different backgrounds were all coming together. And like you said, the main point of them is for mutants, for equality, against discrimination.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, it did show things can be deeper than you know, just like action or violence. I know back in like the 90s, violence was like a thing people are kind of like not about at the time. So showing that it can mean more than that was very important. Do you want to go right into just talking about the rise of comic books and films and TV shows like that started in the 2000s, or do you think we've covered that?
I guess we could briefly talk to that.
Since we're already on the topic.
Yeah, might as well since we're here. I think with the 2000s, you know, a lot of their storylines with the origin stories were very specific and tied just to those characters, right? There is no such thing right now with crossovers and different characters coming to the picture. Every story or every sequel, it was very unique to their storyline. So with Spider-Man, with Blade, X-Men, even for Hellboy, I mean, I enjoyed just watching that, and I think a lot of it set up for what's, you know, the movies that we have now, including that 2000s. I obviously have to bring up Smallville because that's one of my all-time favorites. And Smallville, I mean, it was a show in its own. It didn't really have any other connection to any other universe, but although there was always references to Batman, they had the Green Arrow on the show and Aquaman, but it wasn't as big as it is now. And a lot of the fans, including me back then, it's like, you know, seeing this going on the screen, it's like getting more exposure and people are like liking this type of storytelling. So I think CW, like they're really using that as a template. Like, okay, maybe if we had additional storylines with other superheroes, maybe we can then create a crossover series or multiverse, now that we call it, you know. But it definitely laid the foundation, even with back again with the X-Men and Spider-Man movies. They were never really connected, but people loved their stories, especially with Tobey Maguire's character and the different struggles that he had with himself. He wasn't happy, like I think it was, Spider-Man 3. I know a lot of people don't like Spider-Man 3 as much, but you know, especially with the whole him dancing in the black suit and because of Venom that took over him. But I mean, people struggle internally, and I think that's kind of strong and reflective in those type of movies that people would relate to, you know.
Listen.
And he's trying to find happiness with his relationship with Mary Jane, and that's why I think if those stories are definitely, they need to be more appreciated more, because that started this whole thing. And now that we have the multiverse, like I said, it leads to other stories and opening up to other characters that a lot of people like myself haven't really known to, come accustomed to.
Yeah, I personally like Spider-Man 3 because, like me, Spider-Man had a little bit of hater in him, and I liked him getting to express that, and then he can still be a good guy. Sometimes you kind of gotta hate. That's all I'm saying.
And he had that swagger and that confidence to even go up to women and babies and
Yeah, no, like if he like kind of dialed it back like 5%, like he would have been a cool guy in the Venom mode. Anna disagrees.
5%
Maybe-
is what you're putting it on?
Yeah, because like you know how people like a little bit of cockiness, a little bit of confidence,
Yeah,
maybe
because
not
people
like throw a chair at your girlfriend or whatever he did in that club.
Yeah, because people were so used to seeing Spider-Man as that very quirky, like comedic type. They never seen him with as much confidence as he had in that movie, and it just threw off a lot of people or like fans. Are like, I don't like this version of Spider-Man. What is he doing?
Why isn't he delivering
like-
pizzas?
Okay, but like going into like why Spider-Man, like how does Spider-Man fit into this like algorithm of like what the hero's journey is though? Because he had 3 movies in the original, like we're talking about the original movies. He had 3 movies, and pretty much like he doesn't. I don't know. Can you say like he even got started off as like a call to adventure? If we were to look at the hero's journey as like cycle.
Yeah.
Alright, wait. So are we now diverting
And
to
is
the
skipping,
heroes?
Anna's skipping ahead.
sorry.
I haven't even gotten to that yet, but yeah, I mean,
Anna's the queen of segues, by the way.
that's why I guess we can talk about it now. With the hero's journey.
There's definitely a huge argument. I would say the call to adventure for Spider-Man was, well, twofold, because like him getting bitten by the radioactive spider and then Uncle Ben dying. He invented
But, like-
rice and then he died right in front of Spider-Man. It was so messed up.
Stop! He did not invent right.
Yes, he did. He's on the box.
But like my thing was like call to adventure feels like, oh, when you think of someone dating call to adventure, it's like, I guess like the first thing that came to my mind was like the movie Brave, where the main character is like really like she herself wanted the adventure, so she sought out the adventure. But as compared to like what we have for Spider-Man, what we have for like Batman, what we have for like Superman, all of these type of heroes or like our superheroes, it's like a call to adventure wasn't exactly their thing. It was more so like a need to do it. You know what I mean?
So you think the reluctance kind of takes away from it being called a traditional call to adventure in a hero's journey?
Yeah, because I think when we think of call to adventure, right? Like you think of like, oh, they purposely like themselves want to go on an adventure. Like I guess another example would be like One Piece. Luffy chose to go on this adventure. He chose to want to be a pirate king. So he chose to go on this adventure, as opposed to like, if we bring up Peter Parker, he watched his uncle die, and like,
and that called him to the adventure.
I guess like he kind of can fit into like the vigilante definition too.
I mean, they're all vigilantes.
Exactly, like they all fit into the vigilante definition at that point. Because like when we think cult, like that's why I was like, when I saw this like cycle, I was like, I don't know how it will fit. Like it doesn't fit perfectly to every like hero, you know what I mean? Especially our like American like superhero stories kind of thing, because a lot of them came from tragedy before actually like going to be who they become, as opposed to like a lot of anime superhero, like anime heroes and things like that. A lot of times, like some of them they come from tragedy, but like a lot of other times they came because like these like people are like just kind of courageous in the sense that they want to go out there. They're like the definition of what adventurous is.
So you think anime characters are better than superheroes?
Oh man, I don't know about this argument. This one's gonna be that's a little bit too spicy.
Superheroes don't want adventure enough.
I just think like the definition of the hero's journey could be better defined if we want to like talk about like whether it's gonna be for like a superhero in like the American culture versus like a hero in like you know, Eastern, like specifically Japanese like stories and stuff like that, because I feel like both have like a different sense of things. I feel like a lot of the comic books in the American like versions are stem from like adversities or stem from like trying to make a point and things like that that are like happening in the current period. Like why else was Captain America made? He was made for the purpose of the war. Yeah. The whole point of like Spider-Man being Spider-Man and being like in a full-on costume is like the idea of like letting people identify as Spider-Man, you know what I mean? Like not every single superhero was like fully like, you know, head to toe covered up until Spider-Man came around. I think every like character in the American culture superhero comic books are created with a purpose, as opposed to like these like Japanese anime heroes are like more so created in a sense of like having this like more of a lighthearted adventure kind of thing.
It's definitely true because Stan Lee even himself said that he created these characters because during that time in the 60s there was like the civil rights movement, right?
Yeah.
So he wanted to have a way for people can relate to them in a way that, you know, not necessarily in maybe just a costume, but the way that they approach certain things, how they react to different villains or different people's, you know, with their other perspectives, because they were saying, like, for example, Jonah Jameson, right? He always thinks Spider-Man is a bad person. We all know he's doing it for the right reasons, but that's Jonah Jameson's perspective. And Spider-Man, you know, he can go on and argue with him if he wants, but he never wants to do that because there's no point to argue with someone of that background. You know, why do that when he can prove himself to other people that he's worth like saving other lives, like trying to show that he actually is a good person. And then what you were saying about like with the costume, another example is with Batman. The reason that Batman wore a bat because that was his fear, right? When he got stuck in the cave, and he wanted to show that he wasn't afraid of anything, and he wanted to show the people like using fear as a motive that you can fight back against crime and other injustices.
Okay, so this is for Anna. So why is that, I guess, less of a beginning of a hero's journey than someone who just wants to go on adventure?
I guess like I'm just taking the cycle thing as like face value.
Okay.
Is why I said it that way. But like I do think like motivation is always needed. Like everyone has like a type of motivation to like do certain things, right? And I just think the American comics are more stem from like actual real issues, as opposed to like if we compare it to like Japanese anime heroes. I won't say all of it is not stem from something like that is a real like life issue going on, but like a lot of times it's just more so like I just want to go on an adventure kind of ordeal.
Interesting. Okay, because I feel like when people think of the hero's journey, because that was like an invention of like an American writer, right?
Yes.
Like some dude was just like, hey, a lot of stories kind of follow this. So it kind of had like the American idea of what a hero's journey was in mind to begin with, or not even American, more so Western, because I know like a lot of like Greek epics and like stuff kind of follow similar things, especially with like, you know, mentioning supernatural aid and everything, like so it's interesting that you equate it like to Japanese stories, because I'm not sure if they have like an equivalent kind of like storytelling archetype that a lot of them like study in school and follow and stuff. I don't know enough about that.
I mean, I feel like if we were to have simplified the cycle that we have here in front of us, maybe it could like fit every single culture into it.
I think that's essentially what people do with it.
Yeah, because I think like this one is kind of like being a little bit more on the specific side, which is why I was like, this feels more specific towards like a Western type of comic book series versus like a Japanese like anime manga series kind of thing.
Did Freerun go on the hero's journey?
Actually, no.
Little. I mean, I get that kind of makes sense though. That's a good show. Watch Freerun.
It's a amazing show.
Yeah.
And I would recommend rewatching it right now.
Every episode that we're contractually obligated to mention One Piece and Freerun, and we've done that both already. So now we can talk about anything.
The reason I brought like the hero's journey too is that it's true. Like this is just an old basis that they had, and whenever I watch, an adaptation movie now, I'm always referring to this because I also too want to see how it evolves and changes. Right? like what Anna was saying, the call to adventure is not always straightforward for each person. Everyone has a different background, a different origin, or a different reason why they need to go on that adventure. I brought this up because like I basically wanted to hear what Anna wanted to say. Like, is it always this type of cycle? Is there variations to it? And obviously there is, based on all the movies and different comic book adaptations now that come out. And what's also interesting about the hero's journey that I've seen online, there was a study shown that what about the villain cycle, the villain story? What makes it different from the hero's journey? Because they also go through their own tragedies and their own decision makings, but what makes it different for them? And they said the number one thing with them is that how they dealt with pain. How is it that they dealt with the stress that was brought onto them? And what separated with the heroes and villains now is that with villains, they use that pain to empower themselves in some sort of way, to create chaos and harm to other people because they wanted other people to feel the same feeling that they were. Otherwise, with heroes, for the most part, they feel like they need to save other people from experiencing that type of pain as well.
Yeah, so it does almost seem like both heroes and villains, they gain power for like the same reason, like to kind of overcome some hardship, but then once they have it is where kind of the deviation happens. Like, do they use it to prevent what happened to them and other bad things, or do they use it to kind of exact revenge or some other not kosher means that our sensibilities are like, that's the bad guy, he does the shit we don't like.
And I'll even give you an example. Mr. Freeze, right? From the Batman series, as one of the villains. When he got those powers, his main purpose was to save his wife. Because his wife had cancer, she was stuck in this cryo chamber. He would do anything to try to save her, but because of his pain that he had, he wanted to still show to the world that it's not fair. Why is this happening to my wife? That's where, again, fighting against Batman, eventually, if you saw, I think it was Batman Returns or Batman and Robin, the one where both of them were in it.
Batman and Robin.
And then Arnold Schwarzenegger finally realized, like, he succumbed to Batman, realizing that he needs to actually, focus on his wife because his wife is dying, and Batman was willing to help him. And I think it's interesting because, like, villains themselves, they also have the ability to change in the end if they're willing to see things differently.
Yeah, it's very I'm happy you brought up Batman specifically, because I think this is something like I've thought, and I've also seen like people echo it online as well, is that the major difference between a major difference between Batman and his villains is the amount of support he gets when he suffers a tragedy. He has his butler and his money and like all of his servants to kind of give him, and Commissioner Gordon, to give him kind of both the emotional and like the other types of support that he needs to kind of grieve and deal with things in a more healthy way. Whereas someone like Bane has to deal with his shit in prison with no one helping him. Same thing with Mr. Freeze. His major thing that he wants to take revenge of people is because when his wife got sick, nobody came to his rescue. Nobody came to help him, and some people actively went against him, like trying to make the cure and stuff. That's like a major theory, is just kind of how circumstances make the character, not even necessarily like virtue or things like that.
Yeah, and then when you look at these villains too, like I said with Mr. Freeze, like imagine you being in that position, like a loved one of yours is trying to like going through that process.
Oh, I'd be the same.
Wouldn't you want to do whatever it takes, even if you have to harm people to save your loved ones, right?
Oh, I'd be freezing bitches like crazy.
So I like the concept of these villains because it really makes you think, like, can you be sympathetic to them? Is there a way for people to understand from the villain's point of view of things? Obviously, the big outlier is their actions. What they do to other people separates them from being a hero. That's why superheroes in general, they believe that villains can be worth saving as well, because they are just humans too. They are just like us. They're going through that pain, but it's a matter of what they do with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that really is like what separates it, is that a lot of times people might sympathize with a villain, but say that they're taking it too far, or they're going about it the wrong way. And a example in like recent memory that has had a lot of debate is, of course, Mr. Snap himself, Thanos. Kind of having some okay ideas, but maybe going about them the wrong way. So a lot of people, especially when Infinity War came out before Endgame, were like, maybe he's got a
Maybe.
point.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, overpopulation is bad. Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I want her response to this.
I know you guys are gonna say it's me, but only because I agree with Thanos. It's like it's only fair, because it's only fair that like it's a random lottery of 50% of the population going away. Just saying.
But you think that's a
Well,
thing that
why-
needs to happen?
Yeah, does it really need to happen that way? Why can't he just have all the bad people go away?
Well, I
Because
guess
there's always gonna be bad people. Like, what is defined as bad? Like, everyone has like a different threshold as to what bad is.
people
you know
who
what I
aren't
mean?
like me.
Shut
No,
up.
I'm kidding. Yeah, so you still think Thanos kind of like is in the right here.
It's like me thinking that Aaron could have done better in his rumbling.
Oh, Aaron Yeager?
Yeah.
He could have done better. Thanos definitely did better than Aaron Yeager.
Okay, we're gonna talk about sympathy towards the villains and everything. I don't think Thanos was that good of a villain to like represent the sympathy for, because I don't think his like backstory was fleshed out enough for people to like realize why he's doing what he's doing. Like, but the better choices were definitely like Batman's villains, because a lot of his villains came from like you said, it's a consequence of something else that happened. And I think like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker did such a good job in like really displaying the ugliness of society for someone like him to has mental disorder and like struggling to like take care of his mother and like just struggling in like society of itself, right? And I think like for us who like live in such a big metropolis city, it's like that's something we see on a very much daily basis, like people struggling with mental disabilities or mental disorder. How can you not, like, if you're being like beat down every day, like how would it not like make you think of like bad things and stuff like that? And I think that's why Batman's villains specifically were like always been like my favorite villains, because they have like a better like background to them, as opposed to like Marvel villains. Like Thanos is like one very big and good example. I'm just kind of like, I get what you're saying, but I don't know why you came to this conclusion. Like, I can come up with my reasoning as to why I think like Thanos's choice of doing it could be a good thing for like the world, but I can't sympathize with him because I have no idea why he's doing it. And like, I think the one point of him like getting sympathy was when he's getting the soul stone and he like sacrificed Gamora for it.
Goodbye, young one.
I know, like, but that didn't do anything. Nothing he done in like anything like everybody like talked about him like changed anything like about him like getting sympathy.
So I do want to say he mentions it briefly where he says like, I've seen what happens when like overpopulation gets really bad, and you don't want to see that shit, man. Like, he kind of sounds like an old like war veteran. He's like, I've seen some stuff, dog. You don't want to be there.
Yeah, but I think they could have done a better job in fleshing some of that stuff out to really like make us understand it. Like Batman's villains are well fleshed out in terms of their backstories and stuff, and we understand why they're doing what they're doing. We understand like the purpose of their like actions, kind of thing. But like with Marvel like heroes, like I don't know, can you guys think of a Marvel like villain that had like that made you felt sympathetic towards them?
Killmonger.
Okay, fine. Killmonger is one of them.
Is that what he's like in the comic books, or was that like kind of adapted for the movie?
I'm not too sure about it. I think it is still related in the comics with Black Panther, because it's true that they were related by blood, and he was, outcasted from Wakanda, and he just basically wants what is right for him. But I'm actually not that one. That's like one of those things you have to fact check. That's why I said don't come to me for the source.
Well, you would know a little bit better than me. I haven't seen Black Panther before like Civil War. I was like, oh, that's a cool new character, and he's like, oh, he's been here for like 30 years. I do want to just go back to Batman villains for a second, because something like you said, almost all of them, and Batman himself as well, are the product of some version of societal negligence.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, Batman is the negligence of proper dealing with crime. Mr. Freeze is the negligence of supporting, like, medical studies and all that. Joker, mental health, in the Joker movie at least. Same thing with Harvey Dent, though. You know, he had a negligence with mental health and stuff like that as well. Which
What
is
about
why it's
Poison
interesting.
Ivy? But she's more about the Earth.
Ecology, I
But she was-
suppose.
Ecology.
But she was also abandoned as a child. She's an orphan.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah, the orphan system, you know, also like kind of a very common thing, at least in the United States, probably in a lot of countries, is like a common place where negligence happens and
Yeah.
children do not get what they need, and then like they have to do whatever it takes to survive and get to where they want to be, you know?
But I think that's why Batman's overall like stories and stuff is like has to be my favorite one.
Oh,
more
yeah.
than Superman.
It's great. More than Superman, damn. So you hate MCU, hate Superman. Okay.
No, I don't hate MCU and I don't hate Superman. I just like never found like an attraction.
She relates more to Batman's
Yeah.
villain
Yeah.
characters, I guess.
I think Batman's like a lot of. I always watch all the Batman stuff that usually comes out and everything like that because I do enjoy it a lot more. But even like Justice League, somewhat enjoy. X-Men, I enjoyed very much. But like, there's a reason why I enjoy those, right? Because characters is a variety of them, and then everyone is like coming from a different background. More so, like you mentioned before, like how X-Men is like. X-Men's like heroes and villains are also the same, right? The whole point is that they're fighting for the same thing, but they're both choosing two different like ways of doing it. And that's what I've always liked about X-Men. The same group of people, type of people fighting for rights, their own rights, and but they're choosing two different way of doing it. And I thought that was like such an interesting like concept to like go about it and everything, and everyone had like their own background, like sad story situation going on too, as to like what brought them to where they are. And that's also like a reason why I liked it too. It's like everyone has a reason for it.
My favorite iteration with the X-Men series, especially, was one of the later movies, First Class, where they showed the beginnings of Professor Xavier and Magneto, and you get to see Magneto's background, like where he came from in Germany, and
That's what I was gonna say.
It felt so horrible to see that for him, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and he's being treated this way, like being different when he's just trying to get along in his life.
Yeah, you want to talk about sympathetic villains? Magneto, man. Survived the Holocaust, and he's like getting oppressed again. His people are getting oppressed again because of how he was born. He's like, no, I know what happens when you kind of let it play out and try to talk about it. We're gonna try this a different way, Charles. We're gonna try it, you know, my way. It's really hard to fault Magneto for what he does because we know where he comes from, which, like, yeah, like you were talking about with Thanos, like we don't necessarily know where he comes from. We know like where he's at now and like where he says he's been, but like we weren't there to experience it. But with Magneto, we definitely can relate to the struggles.
There's a reason why there are some like a lot of Batman's villains. There are like some of them that are more prolific than others. I feel like Mr. Pig or like Scarecrow isn't as prolific in the storylines for like a lot of like readaptation of Batman. But then you have like people like the Joker or like I don't want to even say Harley Quinn. But
Well,
like
if you played the video game Arkham series, you would see more of these characters. They've made them very, very well. And especially the Scarecrow, when you get into like these poisoned visions, it's like very scary to play, but it was so good to play those.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Like, we talk about, like, movies, and, like, we haven't touched on TV shows yet, but, like, video games is another medium where superheroes can kind of thrive because you can be them, you know?
Yep.
And you get to see so many more villains that you normally wouldn't see because if you only have one Batman movie to make, you're gonna put the Joker in it, you know?
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like people who haven't played the video games and like rely on TV shows and movies, a lot of they choose certain like you know villains to be more prolific and more like shown than other ones, right? Because
Yeah.
like Bane wasn't really shown until like the Dark Knight series.
Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's but then
He was
like,
in the original Batman with George Clooney. I
yeah,
think.
he was in Batman and Robin.
Batman and Robin.
He wasn't portrayed well in Batman and Robin.
He wasn't portrayed well.
But he
I
was in
agree with
it.
but that's what I'm saying. It's just kind of like they reuse a lot of the same villains for a reason because these villains have like something better to show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The
But,
Dark
like-
Knight Rises, it portrayed Bane much better. Because the one in the Batman and Robin, he was so scrawny, like he just got filled up with all the poison to become strong, right? But there's nothing about his character that was very appealing in those movies.
I'm not sure how I feel about the Christopher Nolan Bane though, because his voice was so fucking funny that it was very hard to like be afraid of him. He was just like, "I'm gonna get you, Batman."
No, but I
It's
think
not
his
funny.
backstory, like when he was in that pit, like he was helping with Talia al Ghul, the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, and
Yeah,
he also had a motive too when he came to Gotham and brought this chaos. He was trying to show that that Batman, that he wasn't always the all powerful and all saving person.
Yeah.
should be quite
But, like-
painful for you.
You think darkness is your ally?
I was born in it. That was like
I was molded by
in
it.
college. That was like our go-to impression. Was when we wanted to make each other laugh. We'd be like, "Bane." Always funny.
That's
But
what me and Zach still do.
as you should. It's still funny, but not to get too sidetracked. But I do definitely want to talk about Christopher Nolan's Batman movies at some point because, like, yeah, those were game changers for me. I think.
I
Why not?
100% agree.
Why not talk about it now?
Okay, we can. Yeah, so what is your guys' opinions? Because I like the first two. I like The Dark Knight is one of those movies I put on when I just don't have anything else to do. Because it's that good. It's always fun to watch. The scenes are great. Heath Ledger's Joker is great. The plot, the music, it's all good to me. The first one is pretty solid if I want to just kind of get more Batman lore and like, backstory. The third one doesn't do much for me though.
I can see that. A lot of people had kind of the same reasonings for that too. Because now you're at that point where, Batman, he was already almost to retire, right? He was like, okay, I've tried as much as I can, and now we have this other villain, and Bane.
He's too old for that.
It's hard for him, like, not when you're comparing to someone like with the Joker too, and Heath Ledger's performance, like how much he brought chaos to the city.
Yeah.
The fairy scene on the Dark Knight movie is like one of the best scenes I've ever I've seen. Like, how can you have people choose either between the people who are stuck on the boat from prison or just civilians? Who gets to choose that right?
Yeah, literal prisoner's dilemma combined with like a trolley problem,
Yeah.
And then with the Dark Knight, I think that's still one of the best opening scenes. The one where he's holding the mask on his right hand and they had the
Oh,
close
yeah.
up as they're about to do the robbery. That's still one of the best. But I agree, the first two I think are still one of the best like superhero movies. It's really hard to compare that. Like, with all this crossovers and multiverse, it can sometimes take a lot away from the origin stories themselves.
Yeah.
And with this, you see Batman Begins. It was a great origin story because he got through his fear. You got to meet like Ra's al Ghul and how he deceived him and trying to take over Gotham, and just a lot of what Batman was trying to enforce and trying to save his city.
Yeah, and something I really like about The Dark Knight too is that you can watch it like in a vacuum all on its own and it's still just as good. Watching Batman Begins like helps because it gives you like more context and kind of shows you where Batman has come from and where he has gotten to. But I watched The Dark Knight without watching Batman Begins and I didn't know Batman Begins existed.
Oh, you saw Dark Knight first.
I saw it first, yeah. And it was so well self-contained that I didn't even know there was a first movie until years later.
That's actually an interesting way of doing it, because then you don't see where he started from, his struggles, his fear. But
Yeah.
you just see Batman as himself trying to save as much as he can, fight this Joker.
Yeah, just an established Batman who, like, has people in his life that he cares about, has, gained some of the trust of the city, kind of in his prime almost, and just seeing that all start being pulled from under him and how he deals with it.
And the actor who played Harvey Dent was really good too.
Yeah, I thought he, like, stole the show for parts, but then Heath Ledger stole it back.
Yep.
Yeah, there was, like, no bad performances. And, like, when I was younger, I had a problem with the Batman voice. Like, where's Harvey Dent? Now it doesn't bother me as much. I'm not sure why. Like, I've kind of grown accustomed to it, but like, yeah, that was like my only problem with the movie at the time.
I never had a problem with the voices.
Yeah, I think I just wasn't used to it.
I think it's just more of who portrayed them is where I became more of a problem. Like with Val Kilmer and George Clooney, I would not put them in my top Batmans for sure.
No.
About Ben Affleck.
I only like Ben Affleck because I respect his compassion for comic books too. because you know the Jay and Silent Bob, those guys are their backstory is that they are obsessed with comic books too. Mallrats, like I don't know if you guys ever seen that movie. That was one of the first ones where there was a lot of references to it, and Ben Affleck was in it too, and he was talking about the Hulk and all these different Marvel superheroes too. So I already knew from the beginning with Ben Affleck, he's really passionate about it. I just don't know him portraying Batman is still ideal. Like,
Well, do you think it was him, or do you think it was kind of how the character was written for that series? Because I think he has potential as Batman, but it's hard to say without like kind of having the right material to test it, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure Clooney sounded like a great idea for Batman at the time as well.
That's why I was saying again, like comparing with like those movies back then to now, they're more meaningful about the characters themselves. Because George Clooney, you know, he's known to be just a very handsome guy playing this like playboy like billionaire. He fits that well, but as Batman himself, I just don't see it.
That's why Bale was perfect, because he is this handsome guy who can be a playboy, but he's also got a crazy person inside of him, so it works perfectly. That man is crazy, but we love him.
I guess I wonder, like, a lot of when it comes to like decisions on like doing these films and like live action TV shows, like, do you think it's like actors are one part, right, to fill that role, but like a lot of the times, do you think it's like the showrunner, the directors, the writers that like really kind of makes the meat of the show what it is, whether it's gonna be good or it flops?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's why you see it like online. Like people, I always like to read up to see who's the director or when a director leaves a project, because that says a lot. If it's a very known director and he leaves a project, that's telling me they don't have faith in his directing, or he probably has he doesn't see eye to eye with what they wrote for the scripts for the characters, or maybe with different actors that they're working with. So every time that there's those type of people leaving from a project, it's always like a red flag, and it's problematic because people know already now in Hollywood who are like known to be affiliated with certain projects. Again, like James Gunn, Kevin Feige, even Sam Raimi, because Sam Raimi did the Spider-Man film series. And I was so happy with him when he came back for the Multiverse of Madness movie, because the way he shoots his movies is very specific. He has that whiplash or close, like very close view to the eye, trying to make it very scary in a certain way. People always look to see, okay, who are the showrunners, most importantly, over those who are acting, because when it comes to actors, it's hard to really say at first until you see them performing. There's a lot of, let's say, bias in Hollywood because people have known for certain things, like Robert Pattinson. I at first did not believe he would do a good job until I saw like other films that he did after the Twilight series. And I saw much improvement, and I saw a lot of potential. So when I saw the Batman movie now, the one that directed by Matt Reeves, I thought he did a good job. It was definitely a different side because he's supposed to be a younger Batman just coming into the game, but I wanted to give him a chance, and I think he delivered.
Yeah, and if you like that, also check out the sequel that they made called The Lighthouse.
You knew you were gonna bring this up! Do not watch The Lighthouse!
No, it's good. It shows you old Batman.
You had Willem Dafoe. Who can hate against Willem Dafoe, right?
Yeah, they Green Goblin and Batman team up for one last adventure.
Don't watch The Lighthouse.
Unless you want to have a good time.
It was not a good time. You've been warned.
I think Mark's completely on the money, where it's like, since the source of all these things are comic books, the writing is paramount. It is the foundation in which the house is built. Like, a good actor can't really elevate a bad story, in my opinion. And I feel like that's even more so in comic book adaptations. A good example actually is the CW TV shows, the later ones, the Arrow and the Flash, because Grant Gustin is one of the best Flash portrayals that I've ever seen. He is Barry Allen. He's the one, like, super great Barry Allen. And in season 1 and 2, you see how far he can go with good material. And then they made 6 more seasons where you see Grant Gustin's back it's really wide. He's got a really strong back. He's been at the gym so hard. The show is still too heavy. The writing is way too heavy for him to carry it on his back. Like, no superhero can do that. Not Superman, not nobody.
I guess this is like a segue now towards crossovers, right? Because we're now talking about these CW shows.
Oh yeah.
It first started with Smallville as just the prime template, but now we're having these characters interact with each other on various shows.
So many crossovers.
With the CW calling it the Arrowverse because it started with the show Arrow, I think that was like the real start where I saw potential on the writing and what they can do. Because now you have these characters from different backgrounds trying to see how they can fight off all these villains and still try to find a way that they can connect with the audiences. I do agree though that the early seasons are probably still the better ones compared to the later ones, because with Barry Allen, when he got so obsessed about time travel and going back and back again, it just drove me nuts. And I already have a problem. I have like a whole thing with time travel, which I don't know if I want to even get into, but those early seasons of Arrow and Flash were really good because they felt really grounded for those characters, and people can relate to them because, like, you know, they're going through this hardships of trying to find a way where they can be happy again. For Green Arrow, he was lost at sea. He lost his father who committed suicide, and he was trying to find his way back to his family and to a city that was just being overthrown. And for the Flash, he got struck by lightning, which would be nice for if we can have that kind of power to go fast and all that, but
it should have been me.
It should have been me. But he also was trying to find ways to go back to his family and being happy, especially with Iris West, who was already in love with another detective at that time. I think those crossovers really started something for them, especially for this DC series. And that time, I think that was like about 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
Those were also the early stages for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because Iron Man started in 2008.
Yeah, and those shows, especially the early seasons, especially early season Arrow, did a really good job of adapting these stories to a modern audience.
Yes.
Like, it was very seamless how they showed Oliver Queen get lost and kind of be lost in modern times, dealing with villains who have modernized weapons and different motivations. Like Count Vertigo, for example, was like some sort of illusionist or magician or something in the original, and now he's a drug dealer to get people's minds fucked up, and it's very cool adaptations like that. But yeah, the crossover era definitely started with DC, because even like the Justice League, when it got to Justice League Unlimited, there was like hundreds of heroes like who would show up for random episodes. And then it went to the TV shows where like the Flash and Ollie would hang out all the time. And then, yeah, Marvel finally made it happen for film. Anna, you haven't talked in a while.
Because I have nothing to contribute about these CW shows since I did not watch them.
Didn't watch it. I know.
Yeah, I'd recommend the like Arrow and the Flash, like at least like the first couple seasons, if that's something you're interested in.
I've been recommended Arrow, and the only reason why I got recommended Arrow was because the guy was really good.
He's
looking.
very good looking.
He keeps himself in shape though.
I model my workouts like to what he does in the show.
Where he goes out onto each pillar,
yeah,
right?
like he does, like he works out like almost every episode in the show, and I do that shit so I can be like him.
That's why it's funny.
He's my hero.
In those early seasons, when you see Felicity just watching him, it's just like,
that's us.
Okay.
She's the audience. Yeah, but he is insanely in good shape, but it's practical. Like the actor is actually like really into athletics. Like he's done like some professional wrestling and stuff as well. Like he just likes being in shape, and it shows. You know, he does a lot of his own stunts. Definitely like for action and pure aesthetic value, like go watch it. But the story is also pretty good. I think Arrow is more consistent than the Flash. Like
yes,
I definitely there was a couple seasons in the middle where it dipped, but it kind of came back to being good, whereas the Flash just kind of got a really high start and then just went down. I mean, the actor for the Flash actually ended the show. It's just a fun story. Like they wanted to keep making it, but the actor said no. The actor said, "We've done enough."
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
Oh, but it was very realistic for him to say that, because like the writing just kept going on, and there was no real alignment of where he's gonna go. Like what's gonna happen to his character. I actually don't even know if I like how his story ended, because in the comics also he became, I forgot what it's called, his character, but he became like the Reaper. Like he's like he's part of the dead, and he's like he passes judgment on people. They brought him back into the Crisis on Infinite Earths also, and it was kind of messy. But
the Crisis on Infinite Earths was such a cop out. They were building up to that from season 1, and it's just, yeah, if you watch The Flash, Anna, don't get excited about The Flash vanishing in the Crisis. It's such bullshit.
I don't think I want to watch it anymore.
Watch Arrow, don't watch The Flash.
So we have the TV shows, and then how do you think it led up to like the MCU movies that kind of started the whole like universe?
I think Kevin Feige, because he was producing all of these movies, he had kind of the ability to combine everything and make these big team-ups happen, which in film was kind of unheard of at that point.
And he's, Kevin Feige, he worked on the X-Men movie series. He had a little bit, I think, on the Spider-Man series as well, but he really had a lot of the knowledge on what he wanted to do and what he envisioned for Marvel. So at that early stages with Iron Man, no one really thought it could grow into something big. And again, that's 2008, at a time where Spider-Man has been out already, people had already seen all these regular origin movies. Mm-hmm. And then with Iron Man at the end, you see Nick Fury hand him the envelope for the Avengers Initiative, and people just lost their minds because they know that Iron Man leads to the Avengers and to formation of it. And then they announced all the future projects with Captain America, Thor, and all these other superheroes that are to come together. So it brought a lot of the excitement for comic book fans because we have not seen something that huge before. And of course, with Iron Man leading the way, it was just something that really got people like really motivated and seeing what this guy Kevin Feige can do.
Yeah, and I'm sure he noticed the reaction. And once the studios and everything noticed the reaction as well, I'm sure they're like, hey, we can actually do this.
So do you think MCU was kind of the one that led the way in terms of like comic book movies, and then DC kind of just ended up following along with them?
Oh yeah, in this particular case, I believe so, because DC was content having its own like separated series for a while, like with Batman and Superman and all that stuff.
For the DCEU.
Yeah, for like, yeah, but the DCEU specifically was created because they saw, hey, those guys did it, we gotta do it too. I actually have actively avoided the DCEU. I don't think it's something I would enjoy. So I've just kind of washed my hands of it. I don't know if you guys, how much you guys have seen of it and would want to talk about it.
Obviously, I've watched all of them, so.
That's why you're the expert.
It's true, though. I think, with the DCEU, it had so much potential. It's just that with the DC superheroes, it's just they're just too powerful compared to like the Marvel heroes, and a lot of their characters, how do I say, they don't elevate human society as much compared to Marvel. Because Marvel, you see a lot of the origins and a lot of the struggles that they had. But for like with DC, it's just, I don't know. I think the writing, some of it could have been definitely better. I mean, one of the big controversial points, like is with the very first one, with Superman Returns, right? Mm-hmm. When he killed General Zod, he snapped his neck. Superman is not supposed to kill. So why did you write something for that? And a lot of Superman fans were upset at that scene.
Yeah, and I know like the scene is also controversial because of mainly how it was done. It was like kind of trying to be a situation where Superman had no choice but to kill General Zod. However, and like I've seen videos on this, which is why I know about it. The portrayal of the scene is there seemed like there was plenty of other options for Superman to do to resolve the situation instead of killing him. The audience wasn't convinced that it was the only way. And that's, I think, the only way they would accept Superman killing is if he had no other choice.
And then earlier in the movie, you had Jonathan Kent when he waved back to them because he's gonna go into the tornado.
Yeah.
I was like, that's such.
He's like, I see you, son. I'm gonna die now.
All right, I'm gonna head out now.
I'm gonna head out.
So already when that movie came out, like, and it's hard for me because like I was a big Superman fan too. I was just like, this is not the Superman that people are going to enjoy, and I don't know what the direction is that they're going to have until they had Wonder Woman. And I think that's still probably their best movie that they created.
The first one, right?
The first one. Because it really elevated, especially for females in general, that they're strong enough to be up with the boys fighting all these villains. And I think Wonder Woman and her backstory changed a lot for DC, EU especially, but it still was just not enough, I think, compared with all these other films.
You know what was fun is when they unelevated women in Wonder Woman 84, which I actually forgot until now is a movie I actually have seen. I watched it with my family during like a Christmas break, and my God, was it bad.
Yeah, that's my least favorite project with Pedro Pascal, unfortunately.
Yeah, poor
He was
Pedro.
in it.
He was the villain.
He's the villain.
And
Okay.
the villain was just a dude. He just got a wishing stone, and he wished to be the coolest.
It was just really hard to be like again sympathetic, right, with him as a villain because
But he had a
he was
son.
also son, but his actions it just didn't add up. This guy is just insane.
Wonder Woman herself made questionable actions when
Yeah.
there was a scene, Anna, where she wished that her ex-lover would come back, but in order for that to become a reality, he had to take over the body of another guy. So this dude is just became a shell for her lover who died like 40 years ago.
Wait, so that's how it happened? I never. Okay,
That's how it came back.
Yeah,
Yeah, because in the trailer you would see, oh, how is he back?
yeah,
alive?
like I was wondering how they came back.
that's
yeah.
why.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, how messed up is that? She's the hero.
It was because of the wish, right?
Yeah,
Like,
she
it
wished
was
for it.
That's like kind of sort of why I didn't like Wonder Woman, because I didn't like the idea of, oh, she's like this really like strong Amazonian woman from like a very specialized like society and everything. Got it. But like as soon as she meets the fucking guy, she's like head over heels in love with him.
Disney princess.
The Disney
Well-
princess issue.
I think okay with that though. I think there's a little bit of her being naive to the human condition and human social interaction.
Okay.
Right? Because like later on she would always ask all these different questions and she didn't fully understand humans in general. And I think that's why the first movie was such a strong point, because towards the end she was fighting Ares, the god of war, and she didn't understand why are people fighting each other. She thought it was the god who was doing it. Further realizing it's just humans making decisions themselves.
Yeah.
Mark, you're still not gonna be able to defend as to why like Wonder Woman was a bad female representation. Like Gamora is a better female representation in my opinion. Nebula
good.
is a better
No,
female.
I'm only
representation.
saying with the DCU. I didn't
Okay, yeah.
even go with Marvel.
Yeah.
Like,
I know
in-
Marvel does a much better job for sure, but
In the
I'm trying
DCU,
to salvage the DCU as much as I can.
Yeah, I wouldn't. The
doesn't
women point is not
work.
their strong point.
No, because in the DCU you only had her, but like we know there are more female characters in the DCU itself, right? So it's just the fact that she is the poster woman of this whole situation, as opposed to like Batman and Superman being the poster boy of the whole situation. You know what I mean? And Batman and Superman, they're not damsel in distress because they're the one who saves the other person. But as opposed to like in Wonder Woman, not to say that she was like literally saved by him, but it was just the fact that she was like so infatuated by him. Like it was kind of sort of a moving plot point. And it became a freaking actual plot point in the second movie.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, where you would want her to kind of establish herself before kind of
We're going into it.
doing like a
whole
romance
relationship.
or yeah.
Yeah. Let's just say DC films were just not up to par when it came to like compared to like the Marvel films. Like they tried
DCEU films.
DCEU films, yeah. Like they tried, but then like let's be real now, like no matter how good the characters were in like the comic books and the TV series prior to it, they were not up to par in the freaking movie. And I think this goes back to like the question of the showrunners, directors, writers really influence how well a like product is going to be produced.
Well,
Oh,
since
yeah.
you're talking about showrunners, I think Zack Snyder is still the better choice when he was originally directing the Justice League movie. Because I don't know if you guys have watched the Snyder Cut, the one that people have been praising, wanting to watch that version of the movie. It does a much better job, especially with all the other characters involved in the film, because most of the portrayal was on the Flash and Superman. It didn't really give the backstory of, oh my god, how am I blanking right now?
Cyborg?
Cyborg, yes. Cyborg had a much better backstory in the Snyder Cut, because it really showed how much he was trying to fit in society, being different.
Right, Cyborg's a great character, so
He is. I loved him, especially in like the animated series with the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
Teen
but-
Titans.
Teen
Titans,
Titans, there you
Yeah,
go.
we'd be remiss if we didn't mention
know.
Teen Titans at all.
That's the only director out of the DCEU that I had really appreciated a lot. It was hard when he had to leave the project. I don't know if you guys know the story.
Yeah.
He left the Justice League project because his daughter had committed suicide. So for personal reasons, he had to step aside. And
Of
then
course.
I forgot his name, Josh Whedon, but he's already
Oh
in
yeah,
bad
we can't say that.
bad waters and talk about that. But
Yeah.
He was not a good director on that project for sure. That's why a lot of people really wanted to see the Snyder cut.
And it ended up being good.
I think it really it gave a chance for him again. I think if he feels to direct another movie in the DCEU universe, I would watch it
I mean,
because his vision is much better than all these other ones that I've seen.
he did a good job in Watchmen. That movie
It's-
I saw like before the DCEU was a thing.
Oh yeah, Watchmen was a good film, and the TV series I watched also, which was really good.
That I have, and I'd like to.
It's on Max. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's on HBO.
everything's on Max. All the good shit.
Yeah, I told you, Max is DC, and then Disney's Marvel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like he definitely has like a unique perspective and like a unique way of telling stories. Like when you see a Zack Snyder's film, you know it's a Zack Snyder film. I don't know whether he was the right choice for a DC like universe. A lot of his choices seem questionable, like the darker Batman, darker Superman. Like on individual projects, like with like the Justice League or with Watchmen, like Zack Snyder can be like that voice that kind of gives it like life and kind of greater meaning than it would have had. And have you seen a Zack Snyder movie? Have you seen like
No.
300?
Oh, 300? He did 300?
He did 300, yeah.
300 was very good, I admit to that.
Yeah, there was a ton of Green Arrow type bodies in 300.
It's very true.
I think I watched Justice League, but I did not like it. But I'm assuming I didn't watch the Zack Snyder.
You watched the Joss Whedon one probably.
Yeah. Like when I did not, I was like so bored out of my mind watching it, and then I didn't watch Watchmen the movie, but I definitely read it. So I don't know. Like I have a bias towards like original source material versus like adaptations and stuff like that, which is like why it's always been very hard for me to like go from one to another. I think the only time it ever worked out for me has always been anime. But when it came to comic book adaptations and stuff, it's always been such a hard struggle for me to like go from one thing to the other because I feel like they are never reliable in terms of like doing a good adaptation, pretty much.
Yeah, he definitely makes like choices in Watchmen that like change the plot, or like he cuts out like certain subplots that would kind of be foreshadowing or something in the original material, but obviously for the medium of film, you can't do it. But I know for the Snyder cut of the Justice League, it's kind of almost more of like a mini series now, right? Like it's separated into parts.
It was a long movie. That could have definitely been split. They put so much into each of the scenes. That's why people were saying, like I said, with Cyborg, you really got to feel more for his character because there was a lot that was cut out. And that's why even that actor, he complained. He was like, I felt like I was being biased about, why didn't you show these scenes that they felt was more important to the storyline?
Apparently, he was harassed on set by like Joss Whedon or someone too.
Yeah.
Like he had a bad time.
Oh yeah, and like
Yeah.
Josh Whedon's like that one scene where they were, I think, the Flash fell on top of Wonder Woman, and it looked like he was in a sexual position, and she's just like, he just made a face. That's Josh Whedon. That wasn't Zack Snyder's doing.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's why, yeah.
Although Zack Snyder isn't like the most like Puritan person ever, though.
No. But this one was definitely with Josh Whedon, though, because there was complaints on the set. Even Gal Gadot, she was like,
Oh, really?
she refused to show her face. In that particular scene, they had a body double.
Good for her. Fuck these powerful like directors trying to get people to do shit they didn't agree to. Fuck that.
But this is like so. I mean, I didn't know about this because I didn't follow the DCEU like that. But like, this is so like, why would you want to be in a DC movie when you can try to get into the MCU instead, where it seems like it's one, a better working edition, and two, like adaptation is better in a sense. You know what I mean?
Well, another one of our talking points is are the adaptations still better in the multiverse saga? Like, is MCU still the place to be right now?
I think, in my opinion, the multiverse saga is just, there's too many things going on to be keeping up with. Like, I think a lot of the complaints as to like people who want to try to get into the MCU but feel very intimidated by MCU right now is because of the fact that like
That's me.
previous
I've watched most of the MCU. I'm still intimidated now because there's so much.
You know how like the Iron Man saga is like Iron Man stuff, right? And then
Yeah.
Hulk is Hulk stuff, and then but the point was just to introduce those characters. You know what I mean? They are standalone sagas, and then you have the Avengers, who is a standalone saga, but had like other movies that are attached to it, kind of thing, to like fill in the gap in between. And
Yeah.
the other thing was there was more of like year gaps in between all these movies that gave people time to be able to watch them without feeling so overwhelmed. And
Yes.
then now you have TV shows and movies that are coming out like almost every single month that you're gonna have to try to keep up with in order to keep up with what is going on in this multiverse. Pretty much, is not even like you can just watch certain ones to like understand like the gist of what's going on. You have to watch every other ones to make sense of what the heck is going on, kind of thing.
Yeah, I did hear that the returning CEO of Disney has slowed down like the production rate of MCU stuff for the next couple of years, so that problem might being remedied at the moment, but you still have to give people time to catch up to where they've lost or give them like a way back to get back in.
Part of that too is also the writer's strike. It kind of delayed a lot of the projects too, but it also gave them time to think about what direction they want to have, because they've been hearing all these complaints. There's just too much right now, and there's too many characters being introduced all at once. Like, and where's the connectivity to it? You're just introducing Miss Marvel, but where does she connect with the rest of the universe? Or Secret Invasion you're having with the Skrull invasion and stuff like that. It's just for the normal viewer who just wants to enjoy case by case or trying to connect them all at once. It's a lot of information, but for me, of course, I'm going to watch all of it because I still enjoy it. But it's definitely something that I'm glad that they're acknowledging it now. They need to really focus more on the quality than the quantity of things, because just like for a video game itself, right? The sequels for video games, sometimes you need to have a little bit time cooking it, letting it try to have all the kinks out, all the bugs. Like you say that with Cyberpunk, when I first played it, it was just so many bugs into it, but it eventually got better over time if they had really just played it out, fleshed it out, make it well done. With the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, with the multi-saga, if they could just slowly focus on one character at a time instead of introducing so much more now, I think it could lead better up to, not better than Infinity Saga, but up to that potential at least.
Yeah, and it also comes back to, for example, like Zach, like I walked into The Dark Knight, as I said earlier, and I watched it without having seen the prequel. Can Zach like walk into the Eternals or something and know what's going on?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You'd be like, who are these people? What is even happening right now? And I think that's the point. It's just like there's no way he can catch up to it. Like if you were to even start at just like the Avengers, he's gonna be like, all right, there's a bunch of people with like different powers, and they're all gathered here, and now they're on a mission. It's like, that's still better.
Yeah, you can put something together.
Yeah, that's so better than like just throwing him into Loki, and he's gonna be like, what is happening? What is Tesseract? What is this like time like situation?
Yeah, what do you mean he's in the Time Bureau?
Yeah, like who is this talking clock? But like that's what I'm trying to say. It's just there's MCU back when it first started, it was easier to just jump into, as opposed to MCU now when you try to jump into it. A lot of it's not gonna make sense. Like if he was to watch like the most recent Thor movie, he's not gonna get it. He's not gonna understand why Thor is being so mopey, or like what, you know, like what is the significance in all this stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And if he watches Wonder Woman 1984, he's gonna have to watch the first 1983 movies. Which is obviously a lot of big time sink.
He's not even gonna. I know he's not gonna really like Wonder Woman. I already know he's not gonna
have him do that. No, wait for the James Gunn reboot. We've been saying like showrunners, they matter. Like, and this is kind of they're rehauling it with someone who has a proven success record with Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. So like,
and Peacemaker. Yeah,
Peacemaker. A lot of people, the Suicide Squad. So a lot of people see like James Gunn and they're like, okay, he's going to make DC like the place I want to be now. Like he's going to make movies I want to see. You know, great director. Seems like he's kind of got a good head on his shoulder, so we'll see.
But like, I guess like since we talked about the multiverse saga, compared to like the Infinity Saga, like do you think the Infinity Saga is probably like one of the best like
films of all time
for comic books?
It's goated.
I
Like,
think
they've never told such a long form story in film before.
my only thing with Infinity Saga, and I shouldn't be comparing it to source material wise, but the only gripe I had with Infinity Saga is that they didn't really use Adam Warlock as much because he has a lot of potential, and he was really involved with the Infinity Saga in the comics. So when I read that, I was really hoping that he would be introduced because he was first shown in the Guardians of the Galaxy's movies.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, there's Adam Warlock. He's probably going to be in one of the Avengers movies later on. But he never came.
He was sleeping.
Like, he's just sleeping. I was like, oh, that's my only gripe. But yes, I do agree. Infinity Saga is still going to be one of the greatest crossover movies.
Yeah, I always wonder about that Adam Warlock thing too, because he didn't show up until like Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
He was hinted at in 2, right? Like they showed like his sleeping chamber or something.
Yeah, but he had a very big presence in the comics when he fought Thanos. He physically fought him.
Oh,
So I was like waiting for something like that to happen. You know, when they all ganged up on Thanos in Infinity War, and
that would have been
I was
sick.
expecting, oh, here comes Adam Warlock out of somewhere, but no, it didn't happen.
Can we talk about how they started this kind of saga, and kind of not knowing where it was going, and in the middle of it, they happened to acquire the rights to use Spider-Man, which changed a lot, you know? Like they edited him into the movie, into Civil War, because they were not sure whether he would be in it or not.
That was a very big deal, especially for a lot of fans, because it didn't make sense to have a Marvel crossover series without a major character like Spider-Man. Reintroducing him into it was really big. Again, my only problem is the way that they introduced Spider-Man was in the trailer for Civil War. It wasn't a big surprise in the films.
Oh,
Ah.
really? I don't think I saw
Yeah.
that.
When I saw the trailer and I saw Spider-Man jump on top of the
Oh, why would they do
vehicle,
that?
Exactly. That should have been stuck, like, had as a secret for the film for people to watch, so that, you know how Marvel fans in movies like me, they go crazy when they see that.
Yeah,
That's part of the experience, and you put that in the trailer just to hype up a movie.
that's fucked up.
that was
I
just
didn't
the-
know that.
Yeah, it was a trailer first that they showed him.
This is why I don't watch
So-
trailers.
That's why I've been trying to like ease off, but like I get excited every time there's a new trailer for a comic book adaptation. I'm like,
Nah,
all right, hopefully they learn their lesson. They don't show anything too much.
they
you know?
don't. They never do. But like you're gonna see it, so I just
Yeah.
don't watch the trailer. I'm like, I know I'm gonna see this movie. It's only for movies I'm not sure what they're about that I watch the trailer.
But back to the whole Fox acquisition. I mean, we're still waiting for the confirmation right now. There's been hints about, you know, with Fantastic Four, the X-Men.
yeah.
Obviously now with the announcements of the Fantastic Four, with Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby and all that coming, I think it's going to be good. I just don't know how the storyline's going to be, just
Mhm.
based on the images that we've seen. And just basically hints of the X-Men that are coming too.
I think the X-Men is what's gonna bring MCU back, like to mainstream appeal. Like that's what I've been waiting for. Is
No, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Deadpool been here. Deadpool
Listen.
been here.
I've been saying this now. I've been telling everyone how excited I am for Deadpool because there's so much possibilities because it's part of the multiverse saga now.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
okay,
he can
explain.
bring literally almost anyone, and there's been so many different theories that I cannot wait to see who shows up in that.
Oh, so you think like people who show up in the like he's gonna make these characters
the
canon?
From the old X-Men movies, from anywhere in any comic book adaptation he can pull. Because if you saw the trailer, right?
No,
you see
I
it?
don't watch trailers.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I
that's
know
true.
Wolverine's in it, obviously.
But basically, there's a big component to it with the MCU or the multiverse
Oh,
that
okay.
he's going to be part of.
Maybe I
and-
will watch this trailer because I didn't
But
know
like
that.
even like the previous Deadpool movie, he was in the freaking X-Men's mansion, and there was like
Yeah,
hint of like a bunch of X-Men like
Yeah.
characters that were, you know.
But that's different because this was still under Fox rights. They
No,
did.
no, but it was just the idea like if we're gonna talk about what makes the MCU great now, I think Deadpool is probably like their best thing going for them because like that is like able to pull a lot of things, but also because Deadpool it was their first adult like movie superhero kind of thing with all the gore, with all the like cursing, with all the like violence and sexual innuendos and all these things like that. It was
The
literally
things the kids love.
like things that kids love. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like it was the first like superhero that like did it. I mean, like who didn't love watching Deadpool like when it first came out? It was like such a hilarious movie. It had its like sad moments that we all know about, and it had its like funny moments and then like heroic moments and all that shit like that.
Since we're talking about Deadpool, because I think I don't know if we touched on this before. It was like one of the points I had in mind. Deadpool is technically an anti-hero,
Yes, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So anti-heroes in the picture, I forgot to talk about like what do you guys think? Are they relevant as much with the superheroes, or do you think anti-heroes are still have their persona or like what they believe they need to accomplish? Is it up there as much?
I think anti-heroes are more relevant and more like relatable now than ever. People definitely relate to others who feel frustrated but are actually willing to kind of get their hands dirty to accomplish what they need to accomplish or to achieve their justice. Because I know a lot of people kind of sometimes get frustrated when Batman refuses to kill his villains or when Superman is too nice and stuff, because it doesn't necessarily reflect the reality of the world anymore. Like some people even like really relate to the Punisher because it's like not a wish fulfillment but kind of like a power fantasy where it's like, yeah, I wish I could kind of have the power to punish everyone who like does things I find abhorrent or have done wrong by me.
I like him a lot also because he is like the catalyst of the justice system when it fails.
Yeah.
And when these bad people are not behind bars, they get away with it, and that's really relevant right now because of all the crimes that are happening, and these people have so many, like they just go back on parole and they come out and nothing's being done with. So at a certain point, when does the justice system fail, and you need someone to punish these criminals?
Yeah. Would you consider me an anti-hero?
Daredevil?
Me, Matt Murdock, the Daredevil?
Matt Murdock?
I don't think he is.
Not as much as Punisher, that's for sure.
No, I think there is a scale to like what is considered like a hero to like a villain, and then you have like the in-betweens of like a vigilante to like an anti-hero kind of like falls along.
Sort of like an alignment chart, right?
Yeah,
Almost like an alignment chart.
so like
I really can't see shit with these glasses.
Oh my gosh. But like the New York City heroes, you have Punisher, you have Daredevil, you have Jessica Jones, you have like pretty much the Defenders, right?
Yeah.
Luke Cage. And like, are they considered heroes? I don't think so, because a lot of it is them being driven by their own satisfaction for something.
I think Luke
what
Cage is, but it's like a spectrum. Luke Cage, I think, is definitely more towards the hero side, whereas someone like, I'm going to just use the Punisher again, because he's definitely the other end of the spectrum where he's just barely in the anti-hero column compared to the villain column.
I think like even someone like Deadpool is more like self-serving, right? Because that lets him into like the anti-hero. I think Punisher is not anti-hero. I think he's vigilante. I think he's vigilante because he is trying to serve some kind of justice, not even meaning that it's like self-serving for him. Same thing with like Batman. Like Batman isn't exactly like a hero to me. I think Batman falls more on like the vigilante side of things.
That's what the cops say.
Yeah. Because Batman does things that doesn't necessarily follow along with the law in some sense, right? And then like a lot of times he does things his way versus like the way that other people want to do it. Same thing with like Punisher. He does things the way he wants to do it because he thinks that like it fits justice better. But then when you look at people like Luke Cage, or when you look at people like Superman, they kind of more so fall along the lines of like, let's do this in a more peaceful manner, but like we're doing this not because it's self-serving, because we have something to get out of it. We're doing this because it's for the rights of society kind of thing.
Yeah, it's more like virtuous, and I think also part of being a hero, some would argue, is like the inspiration aspect. Like hero is someone that you aspire to be like. Not too many people in the DC universe like would aspire to be Batman. Because he's Batman. Well, you're not in the DC universe. You don't live in Gotham. Because he's
Says you.
Okay. 'cause he's just like a scary guy. Obviously, the criminals don't like him. The cops don't like him. Like, he's kind of like an unpopular dude in his own city.
But yeah, which is why like I think like there is a spectrum in terms of this, right? And like I do think that Deadpool is like more anti-hero than anything, but I do think that like the anti-hero genre of these kind of characters are more attractive than like the old school like superhero genre.
Yeah, like the 50s heroes, they don't work anymore. We don't use those versions because they were made for that time. And our needs change, so the superheroes change, which is kind of one of the beautiful things of the medium.
Have you ever seen the Adam West Batman series?
Oh yeah.
No.
All the different shenanigans
that's
they
a
go
hero.
through, the sound effects, and I don't know. It that would not be relevant for sure for today, but I guess for back then it was just very more entertaining, more than learning from it.
Yeah, like superheroes were like kind of like an escape. It's just like, yeah, these are like fun guys who just defeat the bad guys. So maybe a communist or two. Who knows?
Like you said, Mark, it's more relevant now than ever with like especially like how sensationalized crime is now in like the TV like media, news medias and things like that. But not even just news media anymore. Like nowadays you have stupid kids going out streaming themselves doing like ridiculous pranks.
We
And,
need
like-
we need a Punisher against Instagram clout chasers.
They're not even Instagram cloud chaser. They're like on like Twitch or Kick or
Kick.
whatever. Yeah, Kick.
I know what you're talking about. There was one incident that happened in Florida, right? With that kid, he just took food from the woman's plate.
Oh my
Yeah,
They
god.
were eating, and he's just
Or
doing
like he
it
just
for the
stuck his
stream.
hand in like
Put his
I
hand in
think-
it.
Yeah, he's like stuck his hand in someone's like food or something
Yeah.
like that. But like, yeah, like going like about that kind of shit. It's like you're thinking a kid should go unpunished for doing something like that, especially like them being out meted. But then this is what like is driving the fuel for as to why things like shows like The Punisher, you know, things that brings more like satisfying justice or like punishable justice is like more attractive now, right? Like
Mhm.
I literally just saw on Reddit, like before we came on to this guy who literally just randomly like punched a woman outside in the middle of New York City. And as soon as he punched that woman, you had 2-3 guys come at him and started decking him and brought him to the ground. And then you had like a group of guys just like kicking him. And then you have someone like bringing the woman aside. And it's just like, it all happened in like a minute.
New
Like,
Yorkers
all-
are ready to go.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, this is the kind of justice that is satisfying to watch nowadays because you have people who are actually being punished without having to wait for something like the law enforcement to come in to do something about it. Who we all know nowadays are just gonna come in, get him, and then they're gonna be like out on bail.
I
or
see ya.
whatever.
Yeah, it's happening
Yeah.
more a lot.
Yeah, which is why like something like Deadpool, something like Punisher, even like watching, you know, Daredevil is just as satisfying when you like watch these like people get like their shit right for the stupid shit that they do. You know what I mean? But like I think like with Matt Murdock, it's like the fact that he does focus like himself on the actual justice system himself. He deals with like crime like personally, but then he also do it as his job. I think that's what makes him such a more interesting character, a well overall spectrum type of character than the other ones do. Like Punisher,
Mhm.
he's pretty much a soldier who's coming out of the war, right? And then, you know, he's using his skills for good things, I guess you can say. But like
I suppose.
Deadpool is like, he's just a guy who got like powers.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Like, but then he's using them to fuck with people who are like bad, I guess.
Yeah, Matt Murdock especially is like an interesting character because he has like that justice background, but also he has his own sense of morality and he has his spirituality because he's a Catholic as well.
I
So
was about to say.
yeah, so he's kind of dealing with things from like 3 different perspectives, 3 different like kind of codes of right and wrong, codes of conduct. So, you know, he everything he does is like is well thought out and kind of aligns with what he believes is right based on him and his knowledge of the law, his knowledge of faith, and like his just inner sense of right and wrong.
That's why I was so disappointed when I found out that they were going to cancel the show on Netflix.
Oh
Because
yeah,
out of all the Marvel Netflix shows, that was the one that they needed to keep.
it
and
was
keep
great.
going. That's still one of my all-time favorites out of all the Marvel shows because it's just more raw and authentic when you look at it and seeing what he does on the streets of New York, especially. And like you said, he has all these different codes, and each episode goes through that, trying to see, what is he more aligned to the law, to his faith, or bringing justice on the streets.
Like when you mentioned that he was a Catholic, I don't know why that like completely went over my head.
He's always in church, but I guess it's not necessary. To be fair, it's not necessarily the first thing you think of, but it is an important part.
It is, because that's one of the things, again, going back to me, I've read about in the source materials that he grew up as a Catholic, and being blind, it's hard for him to like think of what he can do in his life. I remember there was one, I forget which comic it was, he was trying to pray to God, like, why did this happen to me? What can I do for myself, bring purpose to life when I can't even see? And he trained himself to use sound because of what had happened to him. He found through martial arts and using sound barriers to find his way, and I was like, this is such a great storyline. I was very happy what they did with the series.
Oh, the show was so good. And I think it was the start of like kind of one of the shows that proved that comic book shows could also be just as successful and just as like sensationalized and everyone is talking about it as the movies. And then they canceled it. Well, they're bringing it back now, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
they just finished filming.
Oh, great.
For the Born Again series. That's what they call it.
And it's still Charlie Cox, right?
Yes, but the thing is, it wasn't until a few months ago that they decided to change the showrunners and change the writing.
Oh, really?
Because they saw a lot of the feedback that people wanted to bring back all the regular actors from the original series. So when they finally said, yes, let's bring them back, now everyone's happy about it. They started filming again after the strikes, and they just wrapped up recently. So
okay.
I really can't wait. I even posted on Instagram the John Bernthal's Instagram story.
Oh,
He had a photo with him, Charlie Cox, and Karen Page, or Deborah Cox in this case.
Yeah.
Deborah Enwell, sorry. So the three of them together again, I was so happy when I saw it. I was like, I really hope that the show has good quality to it and that it brings back what was missing from the Marvel shows, because his series, just nothing else like it.
No, they tried to replicate it with like Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and to varying degrees of success, but nothing was as good as Daredevil. It just hit different. He just hits different.
I think with Jessica Jones, it's just like her character itself was very self-serving. But then I think Luke Cage's character was like a little bit better. His story felt more like easier to follow than like what Jessica Jones's story was kind of going about. Like I get Jessica Jones's story is more so like she's trying to figure out like what happened to her and everything like that. But then there was just, I get that it was like trying to be like more relatable for trauma victims, but I don't know. Like I felt like there was still like a missing piece to it to make it like really like like spectacular.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree. I definitely to this day I still remember that one like English guy who's like Doctor Who, who's like Jessica.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I remember from the show.
That's the main villain on the
Yeah.
first
The
season.
main villain.
He was pretty scary, to be honest.
He was really good though.
Yeah, like I think what's her name? Kristen Ritter? Is that her
Kristen
name?
Ritter.
Yeah, she did well as Jessica Jones too, but yeah,
Yeah.
there was something missing. Maybe they were like kind of just like trying to get it out in the success of Daredevil, but yeah, there was something to be wanted from it. Still like good.
It's still good because we all know Iron Fist was the worst one.
Oh,
but
that was the beginning of the end. Oh god.
It was so bad that even for the main actor, they had to tell him, you need to take these like martial arts lessons just for the show.
you need to take Chinese lessons, bro.
Oh yeah, that too. That was
Wash your iron
saw-
fist.
all the comments I saw on that online. I was like, oh god, this is just so bad.
I never even watched it because I just
No, don't.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah, and even that, it had like some good parts. Like his friends who like are just random guys kind of had more interesting stories than him. And like Colleen.
The family members, like the
the family members of
sister
the main.
and the brother. Yeah.
Yeah, they were interesting, and like his girlfriend was like had some potential. It's just the main person just
Everyone had better potential than him.
Yeah, like from a writing perspective, from an acting perspective, like everything. It was just
Was he supposed to be like a white guy?
yeah.
Oh.
As far as
Well,
I
like,
know, right?
That's the controversy because in the comics he's not.
Oh, he's not?
No, like that's what I figured.
Oh, I thought he
remember
was.
reading that. No, he's
Oh,
not
no.
supposed to be. That's why I was
Why
like,
did they-
why did they cast him?
Why did they do that? What ethnicity is he? Is he Asian?
Chinese.
Oh, he's
Yeah.
he's
He's
dead
Asian.
ass Chinese? Oh, he's okay, Asian
He's
of
Asian,
some
but
sort.
I don't know the exact ethnicity.
Oh, why
I
did
mean,
they
if you're
do
gonna
that?
speak
Because it's not-
Mandarin,
Why did they
He's-
do that?
if you're gonna speak Mandarin, I'm assuming you most likely are Chinese.
Oh no, that's awful. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Man, fuck that show even more.
What I very much enjoy about like the Netflix adaptations is the fact that they are more adult themed, right? It's good.
Uh-huh.
But then I think the other thing that made it so much more likable is the fact that it took place in New York City, real New York City neighborhoods. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it made you feel like they can be around in a sense. Like I feel like if we were watching this at a younger age and stuff like that, we can have like this idea of like how there could be a Luke Cage walking around, because the whole point is that they are just normal
Harlem.
people just trying to go about their life, and they all like took over, like they all were in different neighborhoods in New York City and everything. And that was like another reason why like Spider-Man was so relatable, because he also was like, he's based in Queens. The difference between Spider-Man and them is the fact that they're just literally people trying to go about their lives, normal lives, and they just so happen to have these powers that they use occasionally for like whatever reason.
It's the scalability because Spider-Man helps even outside of New York. He's
Yeah.
gone on adventures into outer space and other stuff too.
Which is crazy. I didn't
Yeah.
think there was an outside New York. Because all the heroes are there. Like, who's protecting Louisville, Kentucky?
I don't
Nobody.
But like that's why Netflix, aside from that being an adult, it's the relatability, right? Unlike
Hmm.
anybody can be this superhero. Like they can just be walking in plain like civilian clothes and you would not know it. And I think that's like the magic of the Netflix series of it all.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of like adult themed shows, like one of our topics right here is, are the adult like versions of these comic book adaptations, are they like the best right now in terms of quality, like for these adaptations? Because we have Invincible. Watchmen is obviously very adult themed. What do you think, Mark?
How far are you guys into Invincible?
I haven't watched season 2 yet.
I have
Okay.
not either.
They just finished the season finale for season 2,
Mhm.
and I think it's one of the best finales I've ever watched.
Okay, that's good. Because I heard some like kind of whispers that some people were not feeling it as much anymore. But
Oh no. The intensity is just, it's still there. I mean, obviously,
okay,
some of the story plot, you know, there's a focus more on Mark Grayson himself,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of potential that I can see with the show after what just happened. A lot of the reasons why, again, I watch like these comic book adaptations is about the character and the decisions that they make. And in Invincible, you've already seen the tough decision he has to make,
Yeah,
trying to understand what his father just did.
Mark's just in a tough situation to start, and then he has to navigate it. It's crazy.
It's definitely up there, and I think all these adult like comic book adaptations are gonna be here for a while, especially the boys and Gen V.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it gives you a different perspective just from the very first episode alone, right? You guys remember from the boys the first episode?
Oh
Where he
my
was with the
gosh.
girl,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's something that people have talked about too. Like, what if you're the fastest man alive, and then can you just go straight to a person?
Yeah, exactly. Are you
And you
avoiding
see it on
shit?
this episode.
Nope.
And then it's also the accountability of these superheroes. Like,
Yeah.
they reign to do whatever they want. They can get away with what they want to do because of how powerful they are. So who's gonna rein them in on the law and humanity itself? And you have the boys in this case.
Can't believe you didn't mention under like sympathetic, I don't know if sympathetic, but like understandable villains at Lex Luthor, because he deals like kind of with that issue in the DC universe of everyone trusting Superman and him being like, whoa,
Yeah.
hold on a second, this dude could kill us.
Lex Luthor is definitely one of the most interesting villains because he's thinking about humanity overall. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't care for this alien that just came in saving the world. What happened to protecting ourselves?
Yeah,
and
he's very
he
much
got
self-determinism. Like humans can do
yeah.
this. Like he does like follow like selfish goals, but it's almost like in service of that. Like humans are capable of doing this ourselves. Like I will show you that.
On the TV series, and because he was on Supergirl and obviously with Smallville, you see a different side of him. I think with Lex Luthor, it's just a matter of like his intentions are kind of there, looking out for humanity, but it's a matter of like, can you really trust another person from another planet to really be the savior for all of humankind? It's a tough choice. Like for a regular person like me and you, if we saw Superman, like, oh, he's doing good things, I can trust him. Now you see Homelander in The Boys. He's doing good
Yeah.
things, but on the side, he's doing all this crazy stuff.
But
Can
like,
you really trust this person to be doing good all the time? Can you really align them as a true superhero?
right, like Omni-Man, who had like the intention of like fucking destroying the world.
Yeah.
Like, I agree, and I do think like these shows itself like bring a very valid and good point into like counteract what our traditional superheroes are. We just automatically accept these people with like God-given powers, like, oh yay, you're here to like protect us, but then like
Right?
in reality, like they're just as like complex human emotion as we are, and you can't say all of us deep down are goody good with like no speck of like darkness in our hearts or souls and stuff like
Well, I
that.
am, but
But I do
yes.
think like all these adult shows that are targeted for like being more complex and stuff are like so much better in bringing like superheroes to the forefront of like what complex human emotion and complex like thought process is like, instead of just being like a very one-dimensional kids show.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just like the thing of us living in a world where we have information on so many people that a lot of people who like we might consider heroes, like certain like celebrities or so, or politicians or what have you, we find out, you know, they're not so good. So these shows kind of hit extra hard nowadays because it turns out a lot of the people you like, but don't really know on a personal level, might not be who they say they are. And that can segue into an interesting talking point Mark mentioned earlier, where can superheroes exist in real life? Would we accept them? Like, what would they look like?
For me, it's really tough wrapping all of this together, right? From the beginning, we've watched as kids watching the X-Men in the animated series. Their tone is just more for kids, right? And looking at things. As we get older, we see the real world how it is, and how much like superheroes, if they were in this real world, can they really benefit from us? And it's hard because, one, technology's gotten better. How can you hide your secret identity with ways of finding out who this person is? And then two, the binds of the law. How much can you take your presence over the law, and are you right to do certain things? And being accountable, because you can save a person, but now you see with the law, it's like that person can easily just sue you just for saving them.
Yeah.
So how is this helpful for a superhero to exist in a world like this? And then with wars going on, with all this different violence that's happening, they can easily help people out, but the politics of things, people would align you with one side or the other, not really thinking it overall. Because everyone nowadays they're easily opinionated about all these things online. They can say, oh, well, he's helping in Ukraine, so he's got to be a good guy, but what are the other benefactors, like, or what are the consequences of his actions if something had happened to all these other people, or like what's going on else in the other world? So it's definitely something that me for sure like thought about it. Like, I think we really do need someone who has this potential, but it's going to be really hard to exist in this real world or this type of life cycle.
Yeah, as you said, like if you do something good, there's gonna be a bunch of J. Jonah Jamesons on Twitter being like, "Oh, look at he saved this kid, but not this kid. Is he racist?" The court of public opinion is very harsh right now. Things like, J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man and like the Sokovia Accords in Civil War and like other things do show that is something that's like kind of in the cultural zeitgeist, how superheroes are not just a universal good, or wouldn't even be perceived as a universal good by everybody, no matter what they try to do. Like in Justice League, like the animated series, Superman kind of subvert this a little bit by limiting the things that he does. So he will mostly save the Earth from asteroids or stuff like that, like stuff that's clearly like, you know, not on one side or the other, like politically or something. Or he'll like put out fires. He sticks to like very large scale things. Not even that for the purpose of it, but like it helps him gain trust because he's just doing things that are like, obviously a meteor hitting Earth isn't good. The threats have to be external.
Exactly. It's like more of what is impacting humanity overall, rather just small things in general, or just affecting just a small population or a small group of people.
Yeah, superheroes would almost have to take like ethics courses in order to kind of figure out what activities to step into and which ones to stay away from, you know?
You know, it's funny you said with the ethics course. When I was, I guess, after college, like, you know, you're thinking about what you want to do in your life.
Yep.
If there was one thing that I could do that doesn't involve money, I've wanted to do like an ethics course with superhero related stuff like this, and it would be one of those easy electives where you would show a clip from like the Flash, and then you would talk about it in the class. Like, did the Flash do the right thing, or why is he in the wrong for what he's doing here? Or like the Joker, like showing about the movie about how society failed him. Should he still be considered a villain? Like, that was one thing that if money wasn't involved, I would have wanted to do something like that.
I mean, if philosophy professors aren't doing that, they should.
I know. There's a lot that they could obtain from it, and discussions that people have, because there's just so much content from these adaptations talking about the characters themselves, and again, relating with humans on what they can do. How can you benefit more of society learning from these characters?
Yeah, how can you benefit without doing harm as well?
Exactly. Because that's like number one motive for a superhero. Do no harm as much as possible to save people.
But, like,
Doctors are the real heroes.
See, that's what I was gonna mention, because like what you guys are mentioning is pretty much what like healthcare providers have to do, because they take the Hippocratic oath to do no harm. In a sense, like, you're meant to be like, we're in a setting pretty much, right? We're in a very like strict environment setting in a hospital where like there's a lot of rules and regulations that we do have to follow. But the ultimate goal is to do no harm to the patient, right? Is to try to save them with to the best of your ability, and to weigh out the benefits and risk as to like what is like a good potential for the patient and stuff like that. But like when we talk about like superheroes in real life, like I know we like are talking about like actual definition of what superheroes are, but like I feel like there's everyday heroes that we don't always recognize. Like during the pandemic, remember how the guy who played Jim from The Office did like the good news segments where he would like,
oh yes,
like he has that YouTube channel and he always shows like things that are happening.
The one episode about the essential workers, right?
Yeah, like there's things like that is like, I feel like those are like kind of like our everyday hero, like not necessarily having like a superpower, but like the fact that they put other people's needs ahead of them. Or like there are like firemen who run into burning buildings to save people's and pets and stuff like that. Or like, you know, policemen who like put their like bodies in the harm's way to protect someone else. But even then, they're like just everyday people who are not in these professions at all.
You mentioned
it
before with the people who helped out on the subway with that woman who got assaulted.
Oh, it was in the middle of the streets, but yeah.
Oh, well, either way. It happened before on the subway, too. This is like a common thing with New Yorkers, is that when like one turns violent, there's 3 or more who are willing to help the situation, which is why New York is cool.
There was like a description about like who New Yorkers are, or like who New York, like West Coast people are versus East Coast people, which is that West Coast, they're nice to you, but they're not kind. But then East Coast, they're not.
Why you gotta bring down the West Coast?
Because I feel like it's true. Because when I went out to Cali, like,
you experienced this.
It was more like, yo, get your kid in check. Like, why are you not saying sorry for the fact that your kid literally ran into me, stepped on me, and stuff like that?
Yeah, I have to agree with that on that, because I remember when I went to LA, there were some people who were very narcissistic and just.
So how like, I guess West Coast they're nice but they're not kind, but East Coast they're kind but they're not nice. So an example that someone pulled out is like
the second part, so,
like,
for sure.
Like example like of people like if you were to have gotten a flat tire on the highway, right? a lot of people in like apparently in the West Coast, they would just drive by you, not thinking of second thought, thinking like, oh, I feel sorry for you. Bye. But then like if you're like on the East Coast, they would like there are people who would be like, why are you so dumb and not check your tires? But here, let me help you, like help you change your tire kind of thing.
They're like, hey, dumbass, here's a spare tire.
Yeah, like here's how you like jack up your car and stuff. Like, but because I feel like I see like more interactions like that in the East Coast, and then the like one time I did go out to like the West Coast, it was like, yeah, these people are like nice and everything like that, but like that's it. They're like just nice to your face. You know what I mean? Like being kind is actually taking the time to do something that will help the other person, not just like empty words kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's definitely like a lot of people who are willing to do that, especially I guess on the East Coast. That's where I've lived most of my life, so I can't speak for other places. But yeah, especially on the East Coast, they like people will help you. You might not know about it because they don't like make a big deal about it. Like, you know, there's humility and stuff. Like they help you, they go on their way. They're not doing it for a reason.
Right, but that's what I mean. It's like everyday type of hero. It's like it might not be a hero to you or me, but then like they might be a hero to someone else. Like
yeah, good,
you know,
good
like
parents. Good parents are heroes.
Yeah, like I see like people losing things all the time in New York City, and there's people who pick them up and will like try to like make the effort to find the owners.
Yeah,
I even saw it this morning on the bus because one lady, she had to get off because I think something happened with their fare. They were checking fares on the bus now. So, and when she got off the bus, there was a purse up next to on the seat. So the guy got up right away. He's like, "Oh, is this yours?" The lady next to him said no. So he went straight for the lady who left outside, and it was hers. So he was quick to react. I was impressed.
New Yorkers are great at that. Like they react to situations quickly. They don't think about it. We get this rep for being violent, but like we do good shit.
I'm sure like we can see this anywhere, honestly. Like in like small towns, like where people are more likely to help each other because they know each other and stuff like that. Like, but my point is like everyday heroes are around. It's just that they're not like super powered. You know what I mean? And I think like that's something that we need to like take into appreciation about that. Like, you don't need superpowers to be a hero in someone else's life. You know?
Yeah.
It's like how nowadays Gen Z kids are be the main character of your story or some shit like that.
You're attacking a whole generation.
I was literally going to praise Anna for how positive she's being for a change, and then like West Coast and Gen Z just took the L.
You're just attacking different fronts.
No, but I'm just trying to say like
it's true.
But if you want to be the main character of your story, like how do you want to portray yourself? You know what I mean? Do you want to portray yourself as like a good person, a hero to someone else's story, even if it's a fleeting moment, or do you want to be the villain? It's just that kind of mentality, that kind of mindset.
I think that's such a wrong way to look at it, because you shouldn't be looking at things how you want to be portrayed to be. You should be looking at what you are. You want to be a good person, like not doing it for kind of the appearance. You should be good because you want to be good.
The reward factor.
I know how it is. I'm saying it's the idealized version. It's how it should be, but it do be like that.
Intrinsically good versus reward.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to get into heaven or something. I don't know.
Get karma. I don't know. Whatever religion you believe in, there's like some form of karma to like follow along with it, right? I just want to manifest that I will be a billionaire one day, just like that Bruno Mars song.
He did want to be a billionaire so freaking bad, and then he did it. Actually, I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's got a lot of money.
Oh yeah, he has a lot of money, but that's what I want to manifest too.
All right.
So by being a billionaire, you're gonna have your own like corporation and be like Batman then?
Yeah. What are you gonna do with your money?
I don't know. Just let me hit the lottery first.
Are you gonna like help people? Are you gonna make like a whole bunch of like movie theaters for yourself? Like, what are you gonna do?
I think when I talked to Zach about it, I said that I want a good portion of it to go to a charity of my choice, and then
okay, she's all right, folks.
And I I do want a good chunk of it to also go into investments. So like,
sure, make more money.
Yeah, the whole idea is to make more money so I can like do more with the money, right? But like, I think like no matter what, I'm still gonna live the way I live, in the sense like I'm still gonna live the same lifestyle. I'm not gonna be like one of those.
Can you buy me a basketball court?
Can you just use the public park?
Okay. Okay.
I don't know how this is relating now to what we're
No,
talking.
it doesn't relate anything to superheroes, but like.
Well, it's about being a good person, which is part of being a hero, depending on your interpretation.
I think just to kind of like wrap things up, I think there is like such a big fascination with superheroes for our generation, especially just because like a lot of them tend to relate to us in some sort of fashion. But like, I think the good thing about having superhero as like our media of like our heroes of choice, our TVs of choice, is the fact that it's to teach us like as young kids, to teach us morality and like being good and like what is the right thing to do and things like that, right? And then now that we're older, we have more of it, but like it grew up with us in the sense that it's more adult themed, with like having consequences in your choices, like if you were to go this path versus this path, because there's always consequences to whether you're doing something good and doing something bad. It's just like now it's getting actually explored. It's not black and white when it comes to being good and bad. It's like there's a whole gray scale to it all. Superheroes nowadays are like, they're more colorful in that sense, and villains are more colorful in that sense. They're not one-dimensional, they're three-dimensional now, like with actual human emotions attached to them. I think nowadays like we have more to appreciate thanks to like the MCU and the DC universe. It's like they gave us so much to work with, and like especially in our Western culture, because you know things like anime and stuff were very much in Japan, and it didn't come into like this side of the world until like more recently. Give us a bigger choice of media.
Yeah, and I agree, like, growing up with it definitely matters and, like, helps people grow up a little bit better people, in my opinion, because if nothing else, it makes you think about these things, about, like, tough choices that have to be made. It prioritizes kind of being good to people, and in a lot of times, like, especially, like, for me, for example, with the X-Men, it showed me that things aren't as good for other people as it is for me. So it has you think about other types of situations and other types of people in the world, and kind of having that introduced at an early age in a way that you can relate to and kind of think about it, it definitely helps round you out as a character, or as a person, I should say.
I definitely agree with all those. I think for me, moving forward, it's still mostly on the complex nature of these characters.
Yeah.
I'm looking for those characters that are at the line itself of being good or being bad, and how it affects the person themselves and the people around them. Because there's just so much material now. I cannot wait to see like what else they can think of. And the world itself is not just simple black and white itself, right? So trying to think of what these characters mean to people and making the right decisions, or not necessarily the right decision, what is the best decision that they could do in those scenarios.
Before we sign off, I just want to ask everyone, we touched on it a little bit, but like, what was your favorite like superhero and like superhero like either movie or show or whatever? Like, Anna, I know you like Batman. Is that your favorite?
Yeah, honestly, Batman is probably my favorite, because not because it's Batman himself, but because of the villains along with him. It was the cartoon I grew up with every single time I came home from like elementary school, pretty much. And this is what I was watching on Cartoon Network. Like, it was either Batman or Batman Beyond that literally always came on around the time I got home. So it was pretty much something I grew up with. But I think nowadays, like, I think my favorite superhero is probably like Deadpool.
Okay. Those are some fun choices. What about you, Mark?
So obviously, I said before, Superman was a very big influence when I was younger, and Spider-Man. Those are more of the nostalgia of it. But right now, my favorite is Miles Morales and Invincible.
Okay.
Because they are changing the way the perception of being a superhero it is, and the choices that they make are some of the hardest that I've ever seen in any comic book adaptation. I really can't wait for like Beyond the Spider-Verse and what Invincible is going to bring to the table.
That's so interesting. You guys like have different ones from like childhood.
I was just thinking that too. I was like, me and Mark have like completely different choice.
Yeah, because now I'm really into the Flash, and I'm really into X-Men. Like my favorite X-Men is Professor Xavier. And I'm trying to think now if there's any hero that has resonated more with me recently compared to the heroes I kind of grew up with. And I'm not sure I would say like the needle has moved that much. Yeah, I don't think any superhero has really like wowed me recently compared to kind of the ones that I always liked.
I think that's okay though, because it's like, no, like I said, no matter what, everyone has at some point been influenced or have seen some kind of adaptation from comic books, right?
Hmm.
And it's just a matter of time, or like, us probably like telling you, hey, you should check out this and check out that, and maybe moving forward now after what we discussed today, maybe you might get more interested in seeing all these other TV shows and movies that we talked about.
Oh yeah, for sure. I haven't seen the Deadpool movies actually yet, so
Oh,
I
they're so
might
good.
go into that.
Especially the first one. I think first one I would say is the best one still.
Yeah, there's a lot of like there's a lot of hidden gems out there, I feel like, because so many came out in like, recent years, like, a lot sometimes movies like Logan, for example, like, we kind of forget about that too.
Oh, I can't believe we forgot to mention that. That's
We
one
didn't
of the
mention Logan at all.
I
that's one of
know
the best R-rated ones too.
Yeah.
Logan. Like, I watched that with Mark and Eddie, and I just cried in that movie.
Yeah, I tried to.
It was
I mean,
bad.
I gotta go
That-
see a movie with you guys, like the next hero movie.
Probably Deadpool.
Deadpool? Yeah.
There's not that many Marvel this year.
It might just be Deadpool, right?
I think it's only Deadpool really, but you have to watch the first two.
Yeah.
I have time. Or so the viewer thinks. You don't know when we did this. Anyways, be the hero that you want to be in the world, or something. Whoosh! Bye-bye!